Welcome to the Knowledge Cast. This is a look into the world of knowledge management, information management, data management, and everything in between, brought to you by Enterprise Knowledge. Today's session is part of a series where we have the opportunity to speak with the key voices in the semantic solutions, data, and AI space, bringing together industry leaders, experts, and practitioners to explore their latest advancements and best practices. My name is Lulit and Tesfaye. I'm a partner and vice president of knowledge and data management at Enterprise Knowledge, your host for the Semantic Layer series podcast. And today I am joined by Wael Taha, vice president of enterprise architecture and data strategy at Brown Brothers Harriman, a global financial services firm. Wael's recognized as one of the Boston's 100 data and AI leaders and brings over 15 years of experience leading AI and analytics transformations across financial services, healthcare, and government sectors. Welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Lulit, for having me. I'm happy to be speaking with you today.
The pleasure is all mine. So I would always like to start with a little bit of your journey. If you could share, what experiences have led you to this world of data analytics and AI, and what you're really working on today.
Yeah, sure. So I got into data and knowledge management through an actual unexpected path. I started as a client-facing consultant, literally living on client sites. It taught me that the hardest problems aren't technical, actually. They are about turning scattered information into insights people can actually use to make better decisions. This hands-on embedded approach gave me a unique perspective. Like I wasn't theorizing about knowledge management from an ivory tower. I was in the trenches watching organizations struggle with fragmented data in real time, seeing firsthand the consequences when critical knowledge stays like silent. That's like a overall where I started. Like my career began in the Gulf region, doing consulting work for companies like SAS, Logica, which is now CGI, IT Works. I was a consultant who lived on the client sites, spending months embedded with government ministries, large organizations. This wasn't glamorous work. It was incredibly formative. I saw firsthand how organizations struggled. I remember working on a national intelligence program for Qatar Ministry of Interior. They had all this data across different government agencies. Nobody could answer basic questions like what's actually happening across our operations because knowledge was always silent. That's when I realized the real problem wasn't lack of data or technology. It was the scattered information that couldn't become actionable knowledge. From there, I pursued a master in business analytics from Bentley University in Boston, where I got deep into the technical side, machine learning, data architecture, semantic matching. But luckily, I never lost that consultant's perspective. Technology only matters if it helps people make better decisions. Yeah, so in Bentley, I developed rigorous technical expertise in machine learning, algorithms, semantic modeling, and enterprise data architecture and things alike. I inspired the CEO for a medical health company called Sierra Health. I founded their AI program from scratch, building medical imaging analytics that radiologists could actually trust. It was such a nice experience. Ended up with the success of getting a fund for their AI program. And then I worked for State Street, but also joined BBH. In BBH, I led enterprise BI reporting and architecture, building semantic layers. It was like a dream back in 6 years ago of modernizing our data platform and moving into a data fabric kind of architecture, building semantic layer, knowledge graphs, and entity resolution capabilities. And that was like one of the best learning journeys that I've had in all my career in the last 6 years. I hope that this is like a quick brief where I'm coming from.
That is a very diverse journey. I especially appreciate the chapters between the human-centric consulting side and the technical deep dive into the data and architecture world, which is such a unique balance that is not the luxury for many who end up in this position. So thank you for sharing all of that. That's really impressive. And as I said, it's a very well balanced, especially in the world that we're in today, which leads me to start thinking around, given the current role and the current type that you play in the analytics and the intelligent like business BI space and AI space and governance space, like this, the technical side of the world, it made me think, traditionally data management or the data side has been very much siloed or limited to the structured side of the world. And in your earlier journey, as you were walking through, you named knowledge and information management being distributed. And that's something, interestingly, we're seeing over the last 3-4 years, especially thanks to Gen AI, where this role has expanded to the unstructured side for a majority of the world, right? Like content, documents, knowledge, information, context, and semantics. So I'm curious how you are seeing this affecting your role or your organizational roles within your organization, how these roles are maybe getting expanded as a result, and how your organization is navigating that change or that shift.
Yeah, so recently in the last maybe 3 years, I am, most excited about how Gen AI and LMs are fundamentally changing what is possible with enterprise knowledge. I guess we are moving from find this document to answer this question using everything we know, which completely transforms how organization can, leverage their collective knowledge. The old paradigm, in my opinion, was traditional knowledge management that is built on, organization and retrieval, right? Like semantic layer helped, right? And that's what we were like working on the last 5-6 years. It helps with retrieval. We can map relationships, create ontologies, build knowledge graphs that would get you a lot of metadata, a lot of information about your data. But the senses still required human effort, right? So a lot of human effort, a lot of knowledge, a lot of deeper knowledge, a lot of data stewards, people who understand their data. You need to search multiple systems manually. You need to read through documents yourself. You need to synthesize insights in your own mind, on people's mind, connect disparate pieces of information in spite that we have semantic layer, in spite that we have the ontology and the all of this, what we can call like this kind of metadata layer or semantic layer. I think with the new paradigm and in the introduction of RAG, retrieval augmented generation, coming with the AI and the vectorization of information and stuff like that, systems don't just find relevant knowledge, they synthesize it. Analysis can now ask questions in natural language. So it retrieves information across systems, understands semantic relationships. My personal experience is that Inspired semantic layer was great, but you need people with domain knowledge to be able to touch the data comfortably, especially with highly regulated environments. Confidence, and of course, we are on a cutting edge that we are evolving. So I cannot say that we have managed, I would say, great success stories yet, but we are really evolving fast into what I can say being more confident about your data, because the ability of the RAG systems and in Gen AI to connect information and give you confidence. Because now oh yeah, this data point is exactly what I need. This is kind of insight that is based on these facts that I can then be more confident about it, rather than just shooting in the dark and try to figure out things myself, or come back to go and ask an expert, which are always busy and they're not accessible, and you can wait for weeks and months sometimes to get to a specific query, for instance.
You touched on a few things I would definitely want to get back to in terms of, even just how you describe the semantic layer as a whole. If you ask a couple of people about what a semantic layer is today, you might get like 4 or 5 different answers. That's the reality in this world. And I hear from the way you're describing it, you're leaning more into the semantic models, the ontologies, the graph, these contextual meaning based models. But I do want to get back to that and ask twofold of a question, because I heard in your response earlier, especially in the age of AI and the graph RAG and the solutions that people are working with, there's a concept of like confidence in your data and understanding your data that you're describing. And that got me thinking, as one of the challenges of describing or defining the semantic layer, especially to a layperson or executives. Think about your CEO or your business owner or your SMEs, your subject matter experts. What have you seen work in thinking about like describing the semantic layer in plain language? And what examples do you usually see work, or do you give them, especially if you have like personal organizational examples where you've had those aha moments of why you're able to show and allow people to understand the impact and the value of this confidence score, even that you were talking about? If you could share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's translating this to business is always definitely a challenge. But let me start with semantic layer specifically without yet AI, because AI, when it comes, it makes things a bit easier actually. When we build semantic layer, we don't talk to business that it's called semantic layer at all. Like we don't even mention what is this. So this is definitely a technical term, right? You don't, if you try to describe this to a business stakeholder busy with his own operation and getting to insights, he doesn't care at all. He's not going to listen. The idea here is build a product that business can understand and then describe it to the business, right? So something like, I'm building for you a library of data sets that is well documented, and it will give you, data points and that you before needed to collect from several reports, for instance, right? You used to get this report and this report and this report and this report, and you needed to manually maybe extract it through Excel and try to do stuff, or maybe have another tool like Alteryx or other thing that would get them all together and try to do stuff on your own to get something more, right? Because, it's, as we know, there is an infinite number of reports that would come to people's mind, right? So now I'm telling you, I have built you a data shop that you can find this golden data set that has been verified by experts and have a stamp by domain experts, and is containing valuable data points that now you can start from these data sets and use our added value tools on top of it to merge them or create some data extract or a report. Something in this direction will make it much digestible.
And very visible, right? Like my favorite thing is don't say semantic layer. I think that's a quotable moment. And I absolutely agree with you. It's easier to show and say, here is a data mart or a shopping cart of like the things that you need. Very tangible, very visualizable than this esoteric concept of a semantic layer, right? I can't agree more. Now I am going to challenge that a little bit and flip it around. Think of a data architect and a data engineer, because they have a different challenge with the semantic layer. Probably slows them down. Let me put it that way. That's how they would have heard different ways to describing it. So what would be your tact and your approach? How have you seen that in your world? How do you navigate that, especially understanding that they want to deliver to business problems very quickly, but they have to build this thing gets in the way, right? Like, so what's been your experience there?
100%. It's a very good question. And actually, that is where you need to get, number one, some kind of champions who support your vision, right? And have an organizational, I would say, agreement on strategy, data strategy, right? You don't work alone. This would never happen. Like if you are going alone, trying to introduce something like that to business, I think the failure will be higher. Like the failure rate is gonna be higher, much higher. Not business. I mean like data architects. To your point, data architects is they don't have a lot of benefit to think about things this way. They will be thinking about it the way that they have used to do. Let us build a data mart and let's change our data warehouse. Right? They will always tend to do the same thing they used to do. Let's get back to enhancing our data warehouse, build a new data mart or whatever. Definitely you need, number one, some kind of enterprise architecture that is in place, linking business with technology and making sure we have clarity about data strategy that then gets propagated into system leads and the systems teams, and understand that this is an initiative that the firm is doing to build strategic assets, strategic data assets, right? So, yes, you like to do it your way, but now this is a new way to do it and try to help us to achieve that. And that comes with challenges, many challenges. Not all virtual data sets on semantic layer are necessarily performing well. For instance, many times they came with, not many times, sometimes they came with performance issues and stuff like that. And now you need to rethink your design to support the architecture, not the other way around. Just skip and go in your on your own, do it the old way. That means failure.
KnowledgeCast is brought to you by Enterprise Knowledge, the world's largest dedicated knowledge management consultancy. From training to benchmarks, strategy, design, prototyping, and all the way to enterprise-level implementations, Enterprise Knowledge wants to be your services partner, spanning the fields of knowledge management, knowledge graphs, data, learning, advanced content management, and enterprise artificial intelligence. Contact us at info@enterprise-knowledge.com to discuss how we can support you.
That's a very interesting perspective of looking at it from a shared view of like the enterprise in terms of that strategic view of like this enterprise architecture, helping them contextualize their role within that environment. And I think a lot of the data side of the data architecture, the data engineering roles, at least in the past and traditionally, have been somewhat siloed. And I think that's changing, right? In this perspective of look at your role as a bigger, beyond the silo of like this little corner of dashboards and reporting, right? To like more of like a business enabler, of like this challenge or this use case is what I'm taking away. Is that a fair way of looking at it?
Yeah, it is. Right. Proper communication and training and alignment.
That's fair. I think that's a spot on. In that vein, what are some of the key business challenges that you're seeing your team navigating right now from a both data, knowledge, information perspective, but also business problems like cost, bottom line perspective? How has that evolved even over the past few years?
I can mention a few that things that would be kind of shareable. We are a global financial service firm with an institutional clients, like pension funds and endowments managing hundreds of billions in assets. So our knowledge about these clients are fragmented across. I would mention for just one use case, it was fragmented across 7 different systems. That would include Salesforce, Morningstar, trading platforms, finance systems, external data providers, service delivery platforms, communication systems, even. So that's one example of one application, analytics application that was built for seniors. And yeah, it was very challenging, very, I would say, intense manual process that many people have to work to collect a lot of data, sometimes for weeks, to build the monthly report. And actually, it is error prone. Many times you would fail in getting the right insights because of the intense work needed to collect all of the data. The technical challenge was building what is essentially a massive entity resolution, a knowledge graph problem. Like, how do you know that, for instance, State Street Global Advisors in the CRM is the same entity as SSGA in the trading system, and State STAGA in finance, and so on, right? Yes, you can build your master data management, but it's not enough, right? And it's not getting you this kind of dynamic way that things happen. So what we have built is a semantic matching algorithms using machine learning that achieves like 95% accuracy, matching entities across systems without common identifiers. Then we created a canonical data model like a unified ontology that represents truths about clients, their relationships, their transactions, and their preferences. And I mentioned 95%. This is not a trading system, this is analytics. Yes, it has a margin of, I would say, inaccuracy, but it achieved way, way better results and much less effort. Now I don't need 10 people to work on this. It's just a one person who is managing the technology and actually generating the reports and deliver it to senior executive. So that's like one quick example of a practical use case that actually I was working on.
There are so many things in there that you just shared with one use case and case study. And thank you for that. I understand, you have limitations, especially being in such a highly regulated environment that you're unable to share. But for me, like the key things that you called out in terms of, and we do some work with financial institutions, and the biggest challenge is there are legacy or bespoke, like fit for purpose systems that, you just have to be able to talk to and interact with without having to physically move data around, right? Like that's a big part of the key thing that you called out. And then a way to disambiguate or have them speak the same language at the same time. And that kind of leans into the semantics piece. And the core outcomes or business value that I heard is that manual process, like reducing the time it takes for your organization, reliability, trusting what you see and being able to explain it and how you got there. And then the last piece that you called out around the visibility of it, how you're able to deliver this to your leadership, to your colleagues and executives as well. I think especially I would say the last two are the hardest for many that are in this space, because for the reasons that we know, from the bottom up, you're navigating all these legacy challenges and some of the churn that comes as a result. And then from the top down, a lot of leaders have the mandate to make AI work and be AI enabled or AI powered, and especially in the financial services space. Have you seen some of those pressures being mitigated by some of the data fabric work, the semantic work that you're seeing? How much of that would you attribute to that? I feel like a lot of those who are listening are currently navigating this. We want to do this, but there are all these compliance issues that we have to think about. If that rings a bell or if it makes you think of like some of the things that you're seeing.
I think some of the challenges would be making sure you architect your security requirements and least privilege access while you're building your semantic layer. And semantic layer can be tricky with regards like it can open up a lot of data sources for users, and that maybe people who don't need access to things might get access. So I think the new term DevSecOps is very important, where you need to have the security culture where you are developing things, right? So the least privileged access you have to have these principles in your architecture and in your development, where you need to take care of your semantic layer so that it holds the least privileged access regulations, right, for users. I think that's what I would say big thing. And it's very challenging, in my opinion, because diverse sources, they have their own access and their own row level, column level, table level access, and you need to capture this information into the semantic layer as well. So that's big. That's a big thing. On the compliance side, I think the semantic layer is actually helping, not hindering. I think it's helping because now data is moving less, right? The data movement itself is less. I don't need to keep moving data from here to there to there to there and replicating it, which comes with data destruction policies and comes with also access and stuff like that. On a perfect world, which is not the case always, data should not move at all, right? It should stay where it is. But yes, some use cases will demand some movement and demand to physicalize relationships, not only to be virtual, but yeah, it should enhance compliance, especially when it comes to data security and stuff like that. Yeah, that's what comes on top of my mind. I hope this answers some of your question.
It really does. And in a way, it has become a way you can evaluate maturity of implementations of like semantic layers and even just like overarching these connectivity based data solutions like a data fabric, where the organization is starting to think about security and shifting that left, right? Because many are starting the journey experimenting and piloting, be it like an AI use case or whatnot. This is partially part of the reason why many projects are in the AI pilot purgatory, because they are hit like later on with security issues. And we call it like unified entitlements strategy around, how do we you started getting into it. We want to connect this data, especially AI doesn't really care where it comes from as long as it's structured and fed to it. How do you deliver the right security levels and entitlements to whatever solution, the consuming solution, especially within the semantic space? And for many, at least, it's been our experience that it's a problem that's confronted later than thought of from a design at the design standpoint. So it's very telling of like the maturity of how you've been handling it as an organization in terms of, security being front and center, given also your compliance requirements. And another thing you went into is around principles in your architecture. That's a very intentional thing to think through. And I want to go back to that as we are kind of in a way looking ahead, right, of where things are and how we are evolving. What would be, one data principle or architectural principle that you would abandon or not, right? Like, given how things are changing, you would say this is always a must have in your toolkit, on your toolbox, in your architecture as a principle. Whereas you would say, I would probably drop this one, given where we are and how we have evolved.
Good question. And what comes to my mind would be 100% start to avoid one-to-one connections between your users and data stores. That's a crime, in my opinion. That would be a great stuff 25 years ago when we have Hyperion and Excel macros and stuff like that, and used to have desktop applications, and I know that it still exists a lot right now, right? You should find a way to get out of it because it's gonna screw up your whole strategy, and it's gonna be very problematic to build like a successful semantic based architecture, stuff like that. That, like, I would say the topmost thing that I know that it still exists and it has to stop.
It's very brittle too, right? Like, it's so easy to break. No, I couldn't agree more. You could, yeah, I'm sure you see me nodding ferociously here in the background. What about from looking ahead? What are you excited about in terms of how technology is evolving, frameworks and practices are evolving today? Is there something you're experimenting with or looking forward to just embracing?
Yeah, I'm very excited because I have worked through, in the last 10 years, I've worked through, started from an analyst and a data scientist and trying to get insights. And I witnessed that how it's hard to spend a lot of time trying to get stitch data together and start to collect insights and start to use basic analytics and then advanced analytics to get to specific insights. I'm very excited about how AI is able to link things together. It keeps amazing me, right? And in the last 3 years, it has been running so fast up, and it is evolving very fast. Where I can see new insights that maybe it was impossible, it was maybe unknown before. That AI with the right data architecture would get you. And actually, let me stress out the right data architecture because I think organizations are started to realize that most of their AI agents will be failing without the right data architecture, right? If you don't give access to the bot, to your data, you're not getting the benefit. You're not getting the benefit. Of course, with compliance and governance and everything, and that's the challenge actually, that you have to balance. I never said it's easy. It's not easy at all. And I never even said that we have managed huge success yet. We are evolving as well in BBH. We have seen a lot, but what I'm trying to say is the promise is, I think we are getting quickly from the hype into actually realizing things that it, but yes, you have to overcome the governance. You have to give bot access to your data. Of course, you need to trust the bot with that, and that's another challenge related to governance as well. And where the model is located, that's all things that you need to think about. Once you figure out all of this, it's amazing. How can the bot link things together from diverse information and get you totally new insights and much faster.
The key words that stood out to me and you've shared is, like the ability to connect, to trust, to govern and provide access. I cannot think of anyone who would disagree with that, especially who's been burnt a few times, right, throughout the journey of like the evolution. And I would say we are from a technology standpoint, we are in such an exciting place. I would even say like part of a historical place to be in right now in this space. I know I'm looking at the time, and as we are wrapping up our discussion, I do want to say thank you, but also open it up to something that's top of mind for you that you were hoping to discuss that we didn't get into, or a topic that's really keeping you up or you're looking forward to. I want to open it up for that before we wrap up.
Yeah, the quick advice or the quick insight that I would like to share is keep this kind of 5 steps when you are dealing with knowledge management. Always start with the problem, don't start with the technology. Become bilingual, right? You are able to speak technical and business language fluently. That is very crucial. Get your hands dirty always. If you are more on the business side, actually in both, like if you are on the business side, get your hands dirty with technical stuff, try things, get more knowledgeable. If you are on the technical side, make sure you understand the business. Find real complexity. I would say that would be on bigger organizations. If you are knowledge management and you like this field and AI and stuff, I think you're going to find better opportunities with bigger organizations where they have a lot of problems to solve and fragmented, systems and data, etc. Develop empathy about the hardest problems in knowledge management aren't technical, they are organizational, right? So getting people to change how they work, trust new systems, adopt new processes, that's what determines success, right? That's all. I would say these 5 points, I think, is like kind of what I can share as like from my experience. Thank you.
That's great. Very relatable, very tangible advice. Thank you for that. And again, thank you for being here for a very rich conversation. For anyone who's listening, who's curious about your work or wants to follow your journey, we will provide your contact details and whatever resources you want to share with us on the show notes. And to our listeners, thanks again for joining the episode on the Semantic Layer series on KnowledgeCast. To learn more, visit our website at enterprise-knowledge.com. Until next time, thank you.
For more from our hosts on how semantic layers are transforming the enterprise in the age of AI, pick up their new book, Bridging Knowledge, Data, and AI, Harnessing the Semantic Layer Framework to Drive Intelligence. The book is available now on Amazon or wherever books on semantics are sold. And for more on their groundbreaking work, visit enterprise-knowledge.com.